Can you tell me an experience you had where you felt like you were treated differently because you were a woman?
Yeah, basically working in customer service, I feel like just dealing with customers as a woman is always different than if you're a guy. Like, I work at a coffee shop, and working at the register, like a lot of mostly older men will come in. The ones who do this, they come in and they kind of belittle you when you're working at the register. Like, they'll call you words like honey or sweetie, and kind of it's like patronizing language. It's more childlike and it's like more flirtatious almost. Even if they're not trying to flirt, it still can like come off that way. Like, even if you're working at a coffee shop just as a barista, like, you're still a professional in like a professional workspace, and them like just belittling you and calling you names like that takes away from like your sense of authority. So, and guys that work there, they don't get called honey by older men.
So this spring break, me and my friend group went down to Fort Lauderdale, and it was my first time being down in Florida when I was 21 and could legally drink. And I noticed when we went to the clubs, it was very different than up north in Massachusetts, but particularly being a woman, because they would have ads that said women could drink free from 9 to 12 at most of the clubs we went to. And at first I was like, this is awesome. Like, we don't have to pay for drinks. But then if you think about it for more than like 3 seconds, you realize that women are the commodity at the bars, and we really are just there for the pleasure of men. And it's kind of gross that we get fucked up. Sorry. Oh my God. Free drinks to get taken advantage of essentially at the end of the night. So that was, personally, I was just like, whatever, I'm going to abuse the system. If I'm a big, tall woman, I could take it. But as a woman in general, it made me feel kind of crappy.
I guess something just as simple as just like walking around on the streets and everything. Wait, I need to start over. On the streets. Well, just like people just you catch people looking at you, like if you're just walking around, and then like you have to turn around or something, and then you see someone like look away like quickly because they were looking at you, and like all my friends say too sometimes, they're just like, oh, like they're looking at you, like, and it's just annoying always having eyes on you, and you don't want that attention, but you're just gonna get it because like females are so sexualized in the society, so it's like hard to deal with sometimes because it's just really unwanted attention.
Probably just growing up with two older brothers, just because I kind of saw like my parents treat us a little bit differently. They're way more protective over me than they are them. And even now, I'm 20 years old and I still have a curfew, and that was never a problem for them. At the age of like 19, my dad was like feeding my brother beers. And then I'm 20 and I'm not even allowed to like have a sip of alcohol at like family parties. I'm trying to think. Honestly, no, other than them just being like more strict with me, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's almost like I'm on a leash compared to like my brothers. They never really had that problem.
So in high school, I was on my school's track team, and all the sprinters would run around the high school and like behind the school where we had our football stadium, and we'd be doing like sprint workouts like all day, and it'd be so hot also like in the school and like into spring season. So the girls started running with just their sports bras on because the guys would run with their shirts off, and like the football players always have their shirts off on school property. But then the principal contacted our coach and told us that we couldn't run with our sports bras because it was like too inappropriate, like too provocative. We were like, well, the guys are not wearing anything. Like their nipples are fully out. So I guess that would be one time I feel like maybe just like a little discrimination based on gender.
Yeah, well, I mean, just getting catcalled just like the last month when I was in Fort Lauderdale, like it was crazy. But other than that, I feel like it's so ingrained in me that I don't even like really bat an eye when it happens. It's just like my life. It's just like you're a woman, this happens.
It's just part of being a woman.
It's just part of being a woman. It definitely should not be.
Mm-hmm. Is that all?
I guess like growing up, like some of my like male cousins, I'd be like, why are they allowed to do that to my parents? And they'd be like, it's different. When the only different thing was like they're guys, they can do it. Like,
do you have an example?
Yeah, just like going out like at night, I was never really allowed to, like, say we were at a family party and like the guys wanted to go out and hang out by the beach. That's where we always were at night, and we would just like, the girls would have to stay back because like, I don't know, too dangerous or something. Which like, yeah, but also like my cousins were like a year younger than me. They weren't like, I would just have to stay back because maybe my parents were too overprotective because I was a girl. But I don't know, when they were watching the cousins, they would let them go do whatever. Just kind of those things.
Like honey or sweetie and
Free drinks to get taken advantage of essentially at the end of the night. So
It was like too inappropriate, like too provocative.
Or like they're looking at you like
They're way more protective over me.
it's just part of being a woman. They would have ads that said women could drink free from 9 to 12 at most of the clubs we went to.
The club is packed, the music loud.
How do you know if you've been roofied? If you might be, in a club setting or perhaps a party or something like that, let's say you've had a drink and suddenly you feel an effect that's a little more powerful than what actually alcohol do.
Ladies, have you been told not to drink the punch at parties? Have you asked a friend to watch your drink because you're afraid to leave it alone?
Sort of drowsy, because it's like just waking up stage, and realised that he was molesting me in my sleep. And
in fact, it's a story that is rarely told because the survivors are often filled with shame.
Stephanie and I have been gang raped, drugged and gang raped. What's the response that you get?
They rolled their eyes. They asked us why we were alone. They asked us how much we had to drink, what we were wearing.
females are so sexualized in the society.
The decision to have a child should not be a matter to be decided by the
Playboy concept of women. They let you do it. You can do anything. Whatever you want. Grab them by the playboy. Grab them by the
It was like too inappropriate, like too provocative. You were like, well, the guys are not wearing anything.
Don't wear that to school, you gonna distract the boys. How much did you have to drink that night? Well, what were you wearing that night?
Maybe my parents were too overprotective because I was a girl.
The ugliness, the humiliation, and perhaps most of all, the prevalence of sexual harassment and assault. Many of us, men mostly, were not aware or chose not to be aware of how common this kind of behavior apparently is. So
Chasing me around the desk, trying to get his hands on me.
Pretty much put his finger in my face and he said, men will always beat their wives and you can't stop them.
He said, well, did you bring your knee pads?
There was a senior faculty member who, would tell dirty jokes and make comments about my appearance. And one day he asked me if I would stop by his office, which I didn't think much about, and I did.
I was nervous about getting my first bill out of committee. So I cautiously approached the very powerful Speaker of the Missouri House of Representatives. Did he have any advice for me on how I could get it out of committee? And he looked at me and he paused and he said, well, did you bring your knee pads?
Been propositioned by teachers, by my colleagues, and you name it.
It's almost like I'm on a leash.